Hello, Janana. We're on episode 2. How exciting is this?
I am super excited to be here. It's also Friday the 13th. I don't know if you know this.
Is it? Fuck, I didn't even know that. I love
Yeah, but
Friday the
here's the
13th.
beauty. I was born on Friday the 13th, so
You're a Friday child. What's that rhyme?
I don't
Day's
know.
child is mild at heart. No, I don't know how it
Definitely
goes.
not mild, but
Hey, I think I'm a Monday baby.
yeah, we can
I
find
can't
out.
remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's.
Okay.
Just for the crack of it, let's see. Born on 23rd March 1981 is a...
Sunday.
Is it a
Well,
Sunday?
hold on. Where were you born? In Finland?
Spain.
You were born in Spain?
Yeah.
Sunday.
And the rhyme goes like this. Monday's child is fair of face. Tuesday's child is full of grace. Wednesday's child is full of woe. Thursday's child has far to go. Friday's child is loving and giving, Janana.
Oh.
Saturday's child works hard for a living. Oh, thank God we're not that. But the child that's born on Sabbath day is bonny and blithe, good and gay.
I love it. I love that. Where did that come from?
It's some old nursery rhyme or something. What is it? Published in 1873. Yeah,
That's
a
why they use
nursery
that
rhyme.
word.
Wow. Yeah. So, always here to educate you guys.
Well, I'm super excited for today's episode. Not only are we doing it on the day of my birth, although today's not my birthday, but Friday is. I'm excited to just share. I feel like we're doing these bi-weekly, but I feel like we've gone through quite a bit in 2 weeks.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
yeah,
We definitely aired our dirty laundry last week. So
we sure did. Yeah.
yeah. So we'll see
And
how
we were
the
manifesting so hard on Tuesday, the day before the full moon, that a tire had to interrupt us by literally hitting my car. So,
you have to share that story.
well, let's get into our stories. And then I think that story will probably tie into my ability to stay so calm in chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw that reel on TikTok. That was good. If you're not following Janana on TikTok already, please do so. We're both on there.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll share
Um,
out. We'll put our handles in the show notes.
yes. And for today, I'd like for you to start first, and then I'll
Yeah.
tie in as we go if that works.
Let's do it. Okay, so I want to tell a story about my Mickey Mouse suitcase and what that represented for me. So when I was I think I got that suitcase when I was 9. I think I got it at 9. And I used to pack it when my parents were at home, and I just felt like they're not even noticing me. No one's noticing me. I'm feeling like I don't matter. So I would pack my suitcase and I would take it and I would go up and sit in the woods for what felt like hours, but it was probably just 45 minutes, the longest 45 minutes ever. And knowing inside my body that the search party is going to be here any minute, like, because I matter and they should be out searching for me, but the search party didn't come. And then wandering back home and seeing and noticing that my parents hadn't even noticed that I was gone. And that feeling of like, when we speak about how like feelings are in the body, like you can feel it intrinsically, how that sensation was. That's exactly how I feel. Like my spine is like curving with disappointment and that hollow inside that they don't even care. I might as well not be here. And that has carried on. Like I had experiences that I can name recently with this exact same feeling. And one of them was I was with my girlfriends to eat. Do you want to interrupt me? I can see it on your face.
I do. And
Yeah.
I want to hear the girlfriend story, but what I really want to ask is there's a reason that little girl felt the need to pack a bag and make a large statement. And I think it's really important to bring forward the description of what your relationship in childhood was like with your parents. And this is such a perfect gateway into pain is pain. Just because it's masked differently doesn't mean it's not painful. Because when you tell me the story, I want you to highlight what it was like for you to grow up in an environment when you felt the attention you needed wasn't provided.
Yeah. So about my parents, my dad was definitely the decision maker of the house, and my mother was, I would say, she pedestaled my dad, adored my dad, and was doting on him. And I could feel her anxiety at home when she was waiting for him to come home from work. And he was working next door, because when I grew up, he was managing an old people's home, and we had a unit inside the building of the old people's home. So he was constantly at work, but he was, at work, and mom was home with us. And she would sort of walk around and do chores, but I could like sense she was like pent up with anxiety. It's made so much sense as I've gotten older, to sort of think back and understand her, that she was always waiting for him. And when he then came home, he was never mean or anything like that, but maybe more so like dismissive, happy to see us, but tired. Then it was his time to watch the news and sit in the chair, and mom would cook dinner, and, it would be like,
How did it make you feel for her to be so anxious?
it's felt as if she was vacant. Like for me, she wasn't really there, because she was preoccupied with being anxious and waiting. And it wasn't really until I had a relationship that was similar, where I was waiting for my man to come home, that I noticed, hey, I'm doing what mom used to do with dad.
Yeah.
So I needed to be in that relationship to sort of feel what she went through.
Mm-hmm. So as you were being present in that space, not only were you noticing, you were also absorbing. As children, we're very open to energies around us. How much of your attention would you say was spent noticing that versus just being a child?
That I couldn't, I don't know if I could tell you, because I haven't really thought about it, but I think you're sort of like a bit oblivious to it.
Becomes
Until you reflect on it as an adult. But I do know that I had a tummy ache a lot. And my mom was a trained nurse, but then when she married and got children, she always stayed at home, so she was never working. But she had that empathic side, that when we got sick, she was really present, and she would dote on us when we got sick, because that was sort of like, it feels now when I look back at it, that maybe she got a purpose all of a sudden. That was not just my dad. And so I would love to be sick, because then I would have her, and she would be there, and she would bring in tea and cozy up with, socks and stuff. It was lovely to be sick.
So it's really important to highlight this like space that you're talking about right now, right? It was normal for you to know that she was feeling anxious, and you consistently had a tummy ache. The energy that you were pulling in, you were digesting for the space, okay? And then to want to be in a state of sick in order to get the attention. Like that right there is a really good highlight of how it's really hard for us to enjoy joy. Like, what did Brene Brown say? What is the hardest feeling or emotion for us to actually want?
Joy.
Joy.
Always waiting for the other shoe to drop.
Yeah. And also, when you did have joy, your mom felt you were fine, so she could reconvene to be miserable in her own space. And when that becomes
true.
normal for us, a lot of things can come out of that, right? Children experience that all the time. I think every family has that, but yours manifested in needing to pack a bag and leave.
Yeah. Because I've never really known how to express how I feel in other ways than to withdraw. So I need to withdraw and sort of go inside myself to.
But it's not just withdraw, right? It's to get sick. It's to get attention in ways where it's not just you being present, right?
Yeah, true. I'm like, I'm showing. It's by showing. Yeah, for sure.
So I think it's important for that, as you talk about the story about your adulthood, bring that forward. Allow that little girl to kind of express how she feels about that. I think it's important for you to talk about that.
Like right now, how she feels?
Well, start talking about the event as an adult.
Yeah.
and how that trickles into that space.
So when, for example, I had a dinner with my girlfriends less than a year ago, and they were talking about reality shows on TV, and I'm not big on the reality shows, so I wasn't really engaged in the conversation. And that made me feel excluded. And especially because one of the girls, there was four of us, and one of the girls is very close to me at work. She's like we call each other work wife. And she was also so engaged in the conversation. So she was like also not there for me to have a one-on-one with or anything, but she was also engaged in that conversation. So it was like, it was just me that was sitting it out and not being part of it. And instead of just like tapping in and enjoying what they were talking about, I felt that need to like, I might as well not be here. Like I might as well just leave and go home. So again, that the same feeling of that little girl wanting to pack her bag is like, what am I doing here even? Because what does it matter? Do I
Make a
matter?
dramatic exit.
Yes, such a
Yeah.
drama, little drama queen in there.
Yeah, and it's normal. Gabor Mate talks about when you don't get attention as a child, you oftentimes feel you need to do things to either A, soothe that by distancing or creating a space of an action for them to notice. I think it's really valid that you felt like that, you know? And I think it's valid that you were in the space of they're talking about something that doesn't interest me. So therefore, they're not paying attention to how I'm feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even though I'm still in this space with them. So why am I here?
Yeah. And it's not like I would need them to ask me questions or be center of attention or anything like that. I'm not particularly interested in being center of attention, but I feel the need to contribute. And I also, yeah, I don't like feeling outside, excluded. And I know that adults in my family often did that to us as children. It was like, this is an adult conversation. So we weren't really allowed to listen in. My sisters were older, so they would have adult conversations with my mum. That were just
Yeah.
like, what are you talking about? I would ask, what are you talking about? And it's like, no, this is an adult conversation. So again, that excluded. Instead of trying to translate it maybe in a way that a child would understand it. No, it was not for my ears.
And so now you're really sensitive when you feel slightly excluded. Even if it's as simple as I'm just sitting here observing these women talk about a show I didn't watch, who cares? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that's real. And it doesn't have to be like you said, like, it's not that I need attention, and it's not even about that. What it's really about, it's we as humans want to feel like we're a part of a community, right?
Yeah. And the
And
connection.
yeah, so depending on how sensitive we are to that connection, I mean, Carmen, I'm gonna be honest with you, I also am very similar. I am very sensitive to being excluded.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very sensitive to not being part of a conversation that's happening in front of me. I'm
Yeah.
very sensitive to not knowing the topic somebody's talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it had a lot to do with very similar to yours, being excluded, not being included in conversations that were adult,
Yeah.
or only being paid attention to when I was being dramatic, sick, screaming, throwing a tantrum. Yeah.
There you go. There you go. Exactly. So we spoke briefly about this at another time as well, you and I, that we're both been the life of the party. And if we're not in the mood, we don't even go to a party because what I remember you saying that you're not deserving of the space.
Well, the question becomes, since I'm not at my best, and if I show up and I'm not the life of the party, what's my value?
What's your value? Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
like
that's such
what
an
value am I
interesting one. Like,
bringing?
yeah, because I don't want to be there and just stand and mouth breathe and not crack a good joke. Like,
Just to make it clear, she doesn't mouth breathe. She's just being funny right now. Yeah, it comes down to we feel like just being present and just bringing our energy is not of value. And that we have to put up a show, once again,
circus monkey.
the circus monkey, in order to feel like we deserve to be there. We feel like we're not taking up space. We feel like others will be satisfied with our presence. We feel like everybody else is above and beyond. So now we have to come up with a little act for ourselves. And it's really interesting to me because when I think about all the parties that I've been to as like You know, I don't even want to call myself an adult in my 20s, but whatever, we'll call it an adult. And some of the things I've done and said just to get a reaction,
Mm,
and how
yeah.
extreme I would be in my thoughts and words and statements just to shock people so that they would have some type of, well, this happened and she was involved, which,
Yeah, the shock value.
yeah.
Yeah. Hey, you're
But
talking to someone who used to do the prawn on the dance floor, so
what is the prawn?
you
What?
basically, it doesn't matter what you're wearing, and if there's glass on the floor and if there's drinks spilt on the floor, you go down and you do the prawn. So you fold into, you have your arms like this and you fold into your knees. So your knees are together, your arms together, and you lie on the side of your body on the floor and you're prawning like that.
So you're pretty much mopping the floor.
Yeah, with the side of your body. And
Okay.
it looks hilarious.
Oh my God,
And
you're gonna have to
then
do this
yeah,
with me.
in Thailand.
In Thailand with the balmy nights.
Yeah, no. This is,
That's
I guess,
wild.
why the 20s were such a laugh, you know, and then you catch up with some people you knew in your 20s and they're like, what happened to you? You're just so placid now. What, like you used to swing off the chandeliers. So you're not
Yeah,
living up to that persona that they got to know
yeah,
that didn't even love herself.
yeah. How does that make you feel when they say that?
I felt it when JP said it. We
You
were
want to talk
having a
about it?
conversation. Yeah, so
Mhm.
he had a challenge for us to approach our friends about being honest about something that we can't see our blind spots. And then I said to him, I think you're being too soft with me. Like you can be honest with me. And he said, do you want me to be honest with you? And I said, yeah. And he said, when we met in our 20s, you would own every room you walked into. You were like a rock star. I don't know what happened.
Yeah, by
And
his
what
definition.
yeah. And what happened? Him and I were very similar in our 20s, you know, parties and being loud and external. Um, and now we've taken these like healing paths,
Mhm.
finding back to the quiet, I guess.
Well, you're finding the inner you, right? You're finding what energy do I need to exert in order to meet myself and not others. And
Mm.
what's really interesting is others' expectation of who you are is none of your business,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Others' thoughts and who does say and opinions of who you are is none of your business. And that's so true because
Mm.
when you walk into a room, what matters is how you feel inside of yourself. And what matters is, am I feeling calm? And I feeling, and we get away from this, right? We get into this state of thinking that we have to perform. And so we're reading the room on an energetic level of what they're putting out versus what we're feeling inside. And so we're
Yeah.
also absorbing, right? So not only are we hushing ourselves to feel, we're absorbing other energy to digest. So you talked about having a stomach ache as a child, because when we're children, we don't really have this knowledge of how to create protections and not take things in. And so we talked about this last time. I used to urinate the bed. That was my way of pulling in energy and the fear and everything that was going around when my dad would pull up, and my kidneys and my bladder couldn't handle holding that. So my body would react, right? What did
Yeah.
you do? You had a bellyache,
Mhm.
consistent bellyache. And so the belly is associated with digesting. So there was something that your body was like, this is not ours.
Yeah.
Why are we processing? Do you still get belly aches when you're in situations when you go to parties or?
In that relationship I told you about, my last relationship where I was like anxiously waiting for him to come home,
Huh?
I would have belly aches to the point where I was crawling on the floor.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was a lot of anxiety pent up there
Yeah.
with that.
What made you change? What made you leave?
Hitting the wall where you feel like I never want to feel like this again. Sometimes you have to reach that point.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I love that. What final thoughts do you have to us about, like, what have you learned about that little girl?
Well, I know that I got to show up for her myself because that's what she needs. She needs me to see her and hear her and acknowledge that she matters, even if she is not included in conversation. So I'm not big on politics, for example, and there was a New Year's where I was with family and friends of family, and they were all sitting and speaking about politics at the table. I didn't have anything to contribute with, and because I'm not interested in the topics particularly either, I just got up and washed the dishes because that made me feel like I was doing something. I was contributing in a way of action. And that made me feel really good because I was like, I'm doing something now. I'm not just sitting there and not understanding and feeling thick. So that was another one of those. And yeah, so it's okay to be, I think I've got to remember it's okay to be interested. You don't always have to be interesting
Yes.
as well.
Yeah, I do want to highlight that little girl would pack a bag and go sit in her feelings for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And she deserved a search party. She deserved the whole town coming to find her, right?
Yeah.
And the disappointment that built as she realized nobody was coming, she's the one now who can't sit in the feelings of just listening, has to get up and go wash the dishes. It's too much to just
Yeah.
be watching.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you said it really well, how did you say it? You don't have to be a part of it. You can just,
You don't have to be interesting. Be interested.
yeah, just
Yeah.
observe, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the work right there, is to undo the pain that the little girl felt trapped in the body and
Mm.
now comes up when you're triggered and you have to find something to do to feel relevant, whether that's leaving, washing dishes, and feeling insignificant, whatever it might be. So,
Yeah. I want to ask you a question about the whole when we said that we're absorbing people's energy and we're sort of reading the room instead of presenting how we feel when we walk into the room. So for example, you come into a wedding and then you're placed at the table where you don't know any people and then you discover that that table is like the boring table. Do you then change the dynamic of that table with your presence, or do you sit there and go, this is fucking shit house, I want to leave?
well, my question to you is the table boring with you being a part of it, or is the table boring based on somebody else's opinion?
I think this is not a specific event, by the way. It's just something I made up in my head, but it's so like such a classic, like you end up at the boring table. And I think it's boring because the conversation that they're having or lack thereof is just, it's not stimulating in any kind of way.
Yeah. So we choose what energy we're
Depends on
bringing.
the mood, I guess. What mood
Yeah,
you're in
it
at the
depends on,
time.
yes, it depends on the energy that's coming together collectively. There's no answer for this. I'm gonna just tell you what I think. I've been in both situations. I've been with the in crowd, and then I've been invited to a party where I was not part of the in crowd. At times when I wasn't part of the in crowd, I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna get fucked up and have my own fun. Who cares what these people think? And then sometimes I would be so bummed out that no matter how much alcohol I had, I couldn't get my energy up and I would just end up leaving. And then,
Yeah.
but when you're part of the in crowd, you're part of the in crowd, right?
Yeah.
I think it really just depends on everything. What I have realized through all of the healing, what I have realized through every single modality I've learned, and everything that you're working on, whether it's childhood trauma, whether it's relationships, whether it's career, whether it's job rejection or gaining, whether it's money, whether it's looks, everything comes down to one thing. Literally, one thing. Self-love. And the reason it does is because you cannot guarantee in life for anything to go according to perfection, because everything will have some slight discomfort, going in a different way. It comes down to how much do you love yourself to trust that you're okay no matter where you are. And self-love and self-worth are very related, right? When you have self-love, you have self-worth. And so what do you do when you go to a wedding and you're part of the boring table and you realize that, well, if you think you're boring, you're going to have a shit time. It's down.
Absolutely.
But if you're like, I know I'm not boring. I know how much interesting facts I have. I know all the things I've learned. I know who I am and I know the value that I bring. That table is going to change.
But I find that what you just described there is not consistent for me. It varies. So sometimes I walk in and I feel that and I go like, no matter how many bitches at this table, I'm gonna crack it open and it's gonna be a laugh and they're gonna soften. And that is if I'm in the right mood. But if I'm not, then I will totally sit there and absorb everyone's energy.
Oh, so you're having a human experience, is what you're saying.
A human experience. That's right.
But you said something really interesting. You said, if I'm not in the right energy, nothing will shift. And so it does. The energy that you bring forward matters. They say what you put out comes back. It's like a boomerang, right?
That's
You
true, yeah.
attract what you feel, right? What's really
Yeah.
important is to make sure that you know
That
how
you
you
know how
feel.
you feel.
Make sure that you
Make
can
sure that you can
alchemize the
alchemize the
feelings that don't
feelings that
sit with
don't sit
you.
with you.
Now, that doesn't mean that you ignore them or that you know, like spiritual bypassing. Everything is positive. Life is great. And you're getting hit over by a car and you're like, I'm fine. You know,
Yeah.
it comes
No.
down to not being afraid to feel all the feelings. And so the energy that you bring forward is the energy that's going to come out. But that can also be slight spiritual bypassing. Sometimes you're just not in the mood.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want to be the spark. Sometimes you want to just be
Mm.
present. Sometimes you don't even want to be a part of it. And we feel that we consistently have to be on. And we don't give ourselves permission to just not.
Yeah.
And when we're not, we're like, oh, we're not living up to what everybody thinks we are. And that's just the human experience. Like this last week, I was pushing, pushing, pushing. Two things happened to me. I literally yesterday had to wake up and just go back to bed. And I wasn't depressed. I was just like, I need to be with my cat right now. And I need to
Mm.
just nothing but eat peanut butter sandwiches and drink tea.
Oh
That's
my
like,
God, that sounds divine.
it was so divine. Oh my gosh.
Uh,
But there were moments where I was like, I'm not productive. I'm not making videos. I'm not packing. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing that. I'm not going for a walk. I'm not working out. And then I was like, wait, I'm just having a fucking human experience of not doing anything.
that's not true, by the way. I saw you recording some reels from bed.
Well, so what had happened was I had sat there for so long that all of this energy built up and I was like, oh my gosh, it's moments like this that people want to see me in.
Yeah.
You know, it's moments like this that people want to see. Like, people don't want to see you done up. And, you know, we see plenty of magazines and beautiful people and lives that don't really fucking exist.
Yeah.
I want people to see me in my robe, okay? Because I was wearing my robe, my underwear, a pair of socks, and gym shoes. That was my outfit yesterday. I actually posted it
Gym
this
shoes
morning.
with the robe. I fucking love that. But you know what? When you said that you were in bed eating peanut butter sandwiches, I felt so, you were so relatable in that moment when you said it. I was like, I'm so glad.
Yeah. And I even made them myself, and they were so delicious. And so, human experience, you know? Some days I'm
Mm.
looking hot and heavy and I'm outside going for a walk, and some days I'm in my robe, pair of socks, brand new gym shoes, eating peanut butter sandwiches, and I am great both ways. Okay.
Yeah. And this is exactly, we forget that other people aren't going through the whole tired spells. Because when I judge myself to shreds when I'm tired, and I have a tendency to go into worst case scenario thinking that it's probably cancer. It's probably that, or I've got MS, or it's something dreadful. I don't know what it is, but it needs to be figured out. And then you go into this fucking head spiral. And that's why I'm addicted to energy drinks still to this day. It's like, I don't want to feel like this. I don't have any cocaine. Let's go for the caffeine.
It's funny, you keep coming back to the energy drinks. We're gonna have to talk about this in our 101.
Yeah.
But you know what's interesting? I would be interested to know, out of all of our listeners, how many people have these same thoughts when they walk into a party and they have all of these thoughts of, will they see me? Will they hear me? Will I be fun enough? Am I taking up space? Am I of value? Like, this is the normal human thoughts. And going back to the little girl scenario, a lot of these thoughts are formed within us as a result of the experiences that we didn't get to process. And it really comes down to, were you taught self-value and love as a little girl? If your mom consistently had anxiety and only felt better when there was another entity that came through the door, what you saw is you need something else to feel better.
Oh
Right?
my God. Yeah.
Yeah. And so then you went into the cycle, and I was watching a show yesterday that said, never go back to something that broke you or something like that. And you had to experience that for you to recognize that, you know, and you had to relive it. And this is how we get into cycles. This is how we this is how we get to learn if we choose to take a look at it. And your little girl, like, I love listening to your stories. And even though I remember when our very first story, when you were telling me and you're like, I felt like my story was so dull. And I was like, no, there are so many parables in your story. There's so many hidden little truths of what that girl experienced. Last episode was my favorite with you. You were so raw and real about the sexual experience you had, and then how that was kind of, you had this beautiful experience. You're wearing your beautiful dress and you're doing your thing, and then your dad comes with a sack of potatoes and is beating you to death. And it's like, what? Like, I didn't expect that reward, and
Hmm.
I just love listening because you don't have to have a true beating, a war, a fire to feel pain. It's the little moments that build up inside of us. Speaking
Yeah.
of, I'll dive into my story. Maybe this
Yes,
will.
please.
So I'm really between two stories right now, and I feel like both are amazing, but we're already at 34 minutes, so I'm going to pick one. But
Take your
let me
time.
see what I'm feeling into. One of the stories is me being locked outside the doors by my mother towards nightfall. And she used to scare me that I'm going to use a word that's not culturally appropriate, but this is the word we used to use, gypsies. And I'm from Bosnia, and we used to have a lot of Romanian. The word is gypsies, but it's, I'm going to just say Romanian people
Traveler.
come and travelers. Yeah, Romanian travelers
Yeah.
come and live in Bosnia, and they would have circuses, and they were actually really amazing people. But, because they weren't from the little town I was from, they were outsiders. And so as a result, uh, kids would be held by their hand really tight. There was always be speak
Yeah.
of something missing or what's going on. And so, anyways, one night I don't even remember what it was, but I wasn't doing something that my mother needed me to do or behave or whatever it may be. I think it was probably she was trying to keep the house calm for my dad's arrival. And of course, I was throwing a ruckus as usual because, like you, I needed to express myself loudly to get attention. If I just sat on the couch, it was like I didn't exist. And as a little girl, once again, you derive value based on how much attention you get from the people that you love. You derive love about yourself based on how much people pay attention to you and want to play with you. And so I must have not been doing something. And my mom decided to, instead of whatever she would normally do, whether that's like, I don't know if your mom used to do this, but my mom used to be like, you need to go outside and pick your own whip. You have to go outside, and we had this apple tree, and you have to pick a whip. And what a whip is just a branch. Okay, that's a whip.
Yeah.
So, do you want a thick one or a thin one? But anyways, she must have been tired of the whip because she
Came back
said,
with a puny little stick.
dude, those are the worst. You can't come back with something too puny because then she'll go get her own. So you got to pick something. And
Oh
those
my
little thin
God.
ones leave like lashings. So anyways, she must have been tired of that. She dragged me by the hand, put me outside the outside door, closed the door and locked it. And the sun was coming down. I was afraid of two things as a child, the dark and the wind. And I remember just starting to cry. And she said, the gypsies are coming. They're going to get you. And this is what you deserve. And she left me outside that door. How long? Probably not long. But to me, it seemed like 3 weeks. Right? Seemed like,
Yeah.
and I remember crying and begging her to come outside and hug me and give me comfort. I just remember how little I was. I was standing there. It was almost like I was just standing there, soaked my face. My head was down, facing, and also looking around because I was afraid something was going to snatch me. And I remember how rejected I felt. I remember how unsafe that little girl felt. I remember how she felt about expressing her needs and what that meant. It meant that you get punished when you speak your truth. It meant that if you get to ask for what you want, you get to be told that you'll disappear. It meant that when you ached for love and you didn't know how to ask for it, you were going to get punished when you did play out something to get it. And I forgive my mom and I love my mom to this day. I have no ill feelings, but I feel that little girl's pain and that little girl's experience of rejection is still with me today and is part of the reason why A, I don't trust people.
Mhm.
B, I am very much looking over my shoulders whenever I'm in a space where I haven't met someone that I have developed a relationship with. And see, I'm really sensitive to being rejected to a number of things: how I look, what I say, how I feel, the energy I bring forth. Am I valuable, right? How do these people see me? Am I part of the crew? And I say all of this because I've been working on all of this and I'm very aware of it. And I feel that that little girl is going to be a part of my healing probably for the rest of my life, because there's always a part of me that comes online in a situation I've never been in. And then what it really comes down to is not being like, God damn it, again, I'm feeling this again, I'm so tired, but saying, oh, hi, I thought we did this already. Well, I'm aware of you. And what do you need, right?
So being
Working with
curious.
very curious, right? And they say awareness is half the work, and it sure is, because when you walk into a room and you start to feel the discomfort and you can pause to be aware of it, and then you can take a look at it from an angle of, when was the last time I felt like this? And is this a new experience or is this a triggered experience? You can actually choose how you handle it, right? I mean, you might
Mm.
walk into a room where there's somebody playing with a sword and they're coming to attack you. You've never been attacked by a sword before. That's a first time experience. Run. Okay, I get it.
Yeah.
But if you walk into a room, there's three people, they're talking, they don't even look up to look at you and acknowledge you. That's probably going to be a triggered experience of a past that you've had. And so, the stories today that we have shared are, how has your childhood come about in adulthood? And have you paused enough to look at it to understand what you're actually feeling? And that little girl, I have told that story so many times to my therapist. Like, I mean, let's say the session is $200. Every time I talk about it, I'm like, man, girl, you cost me 10 grand. But she's worth it because but I will also highlight a couple of other things. She has taught me beautiful things. I'm
Mm.
very resourceful. I know how to find my way in the most dangerous places. I am very aware of my surroundings and I can smell a bullshitter from a mile away. Have I ever been screwed over? Of course. But she's also taught me a lot of skills. And so there's beauty in all of these experiences, right?
Yeah.
And
Well,
your experience, go ahead.
that sounds like what you referred to being like excellent in crisis. Like when a
Mm-hmm.
tire smashes your window on the highway when you're going 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, and with your experience, what's really beautiful is you are also identifying who are your people. Have you been hanging out with the cool table? Because that's the cool
Mm.
table. Are you even fucking interested in their topics?
Mhm.
Or do you need to find the energy that resonates with who you are?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think I will leave it at that story because the next one will
That's a
take a
powerful story, and it's beautiful to see how much you know exactly what it's done, how it's affected you in adult life. And I was thinking about your mum when you told that story and how she must have felt just waiting for your dad to come home. And I mean, I don't have children, so I know nothing about parenting, but I can just imagine when you're that much in your head and you're that much in fear of what's going to happen next when your spouse comes home, your kids are probably a big nuisance.
yeah.
Like just do whatever to like keep them quiet or keep the peace, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you hit a nail on the head. She was so preoccupied with the fear of what he might do that making me feel the way I felt was like a kernel in in a bag of rocks. And so that's why I'm not even mad, because I'm like, she
Yeah.
did the best she could. And
And all our parents do the best they can. Yeah. But
parents do.
yeah. And these are beautiful lessons for us as well.
Yeah, I feel like it's almost like a double lesson when we talk about it. One is, how can we show up better? And two is, what did we learn as a result of? So
Mm.
double-sided, but
And I
yeah.
mean, would you change anything if you could?
No. Oh God, no. Oh God. We're about to
Because you
get into
wouldn't,
the stories.
because it wouldn't be you, right? And now I feel like there's something about women in their late 30s, 40s, maybe sometimes later in life as well, that we only just learn to love ourselves and really accept ourselves. And I think it requires all of that, the experiences and then the reflections. And the reflections don't really come until, I mean, I am a bit analytical. I do like to go in my head and think about things, but I haven't really reflected as much in my 20s as I did in my 30s, you know, and especially now in my 40s. Like there's a lot of reflection being going on.
Yeah. I would say in my 20s, I used to have a lot of thoughts of, well, I really wish I was raised in America. How different would my life have been if my father was loving? How different would my life with men have been if I was raised by parents who really knew love and commitment and relationship and showing up for one another? I used to have a lot of resentment. And upon reflection and learning about all the lessons that I have gained and really falling in love with myself, right? I didn't get a
Mm.
chance to fall in love with myself as a child, so I had to fall in love with myself as a woman, as this adult. No, there's not a moment in my life that I would ask God to change. Not one single thing. Even the painful moments of being laid off or the relationship that never happened or losing, like I lost everything in '08 when the economy crashed when I was in Chicago. Like I lost my condo and everything that I had, and I was 26. You know, to lose $100,000 at the time as a 26-year-old is like huge. But I don't think
Yeah.
I would, because I lost everything. I literally packed up my car, I took my dog, and I said, I'm going downtown. And I just left. And it changed my whole life. And then I did it again in 2015, moved to Austin, and I'm doing it again right now. And to say, I wish that that little girl wasn't locked outside that door. If that little girl didn't experience that, that little girl wouldn't have taught me what it's like to fight for herself and to learn how to scan a room and know when she's safe and when she's not.
Yeah.
But it comes down to, are you overusing that tool? And so, no, I wouldn't change a damn thing. I love my life. I love my people. I love my stories. I love myself. No,
Yeah.
wouldn't.
And I don't think you wouldn't have been as cool and as funny if you wouldn't have had to work that personality and
Yeah,
sense of humor.
yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with you.
Not that
No.
not that your essence isn't fun. Of course it is. But you know what I mean? Like growing up in a very what could you say, like a smooth sailing upbringing is not necessarily conducive for a good personality.
I'm just joking. No,
Call
but
a
pain
spade
is
a
pain.
spade. It's
But pain
boring.
is pain. Yeah. But here's the deal. There is no such thing as boring. Like, I feel like everybody's life has moments of suffering, and the key is in finding value in them, you know? And I look at the American girls that did grow up here whose life I wish I had, and then I got to know them and I was like, oh, your pain was under the rug, and because it wasn't as evident, you thought it was all your fault. Where like I got slapped, so I knew it wasn't my fault, you know? Like,
Yeah.
and it's even harder to work through the things that are done under the rug than when they're just evident, right? Like abuse and things like that. So pain is pain. I really believe that our childhoods shape us. And if you feel that yours wasn't significantly painful enough, you're fooling yourself.
Yeah.
It's simple as that.
Yeah. For sure. And I
But
think it's so important what you said as well, that we don't judge ourselves for how we feel from moment to moment. When we have those days when it's like today is, I've like falling off the wagon, for example, of sobriety. Like,
yeah.
often have these spells of trying to be sober. That makes me sound like I drink a lot. I don't actually, but I'm trying to be absolute. And because it's easier for me, I got like a sort of a black and white thinking, so it's easy
Yeah.
rather than moderating my drinking. It's easier just to be abstaining or drinking often. So yeah, not judging myself when I fall off that wagon, for example. Like,
Yeah.
okay, I had a few drinks, so what? Let's just start again.
Yeah. And have a few drinks. Who cares? It's not the end of the world. And sometimes I do this. Sometimes I need to be reminded. You
How
know?
fun life can be.
Well, yes, or how the flame can burn you.
Yeah, exactly.
Go
Yeah.
there. But thank you for sharing your story today. I really enjoyed catching up. I really hope that our listeners can connect with the silliness of our thoughts and our sharing. And my only hope is that for anybody that's listening, that you can find some similarity with who you are and what you feel. And we would love to hear from you, just in general, to know where you're coming from. We are not creating this podcast because it's perfectly polished or sharing something that's revolutionary, but rather just everyday regular life. And that's the goal, right? Two friends meeting up and just sharing life. And that's it.
Just a couple of regular Janes.
I love that. But yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for
Well
today.
said.
We'll reconvene in 2 weeks and we'll have another show for you.
Yeah. Thanks for listening.
Bye.